to Angler and welcome to the episode. This season I'm looking forward to bringing you the latest content fishing out of a kayak with top water from around the league. I'm looking forward to doing league nights. I'm looking forward to doing Elite Series, MKT on the east side, the west side of the state, and just bringing you some of the videos from just fun fishing. Last season was absolutely incredible. Out of 26 events, I had 19 top 10 finishes, 10 podium finish payouts. I had 4 first place finishes, 1 second place finish, and 3 third place finishes. I was also the runner-up for the Michigan Big Bass Bracket Championship. I am an Elite Series Angler of the Year runner-up, and I am currently the MKT East Angler of the Year. Now, I've only been competitive fishing for a couple years, and this season I'm hoping to bring you some of the knowledge that I've acquired through talking to a lot of the anglers from around the league so that you can improve your game and hopefully have a great season. This year is shaping up to be absolutely incredible. We're going to be on a lot of different lakes this year, so please stay tuned. Let's learn together, let's grow together, let's compete together, and ultimately, let's support each other. Let's get it. Part of growing as an angler is trying to find those blind spots that you might have so that you can improve your game tenfold in the off season. Looking back at last season, the Prespawn was definitely an area that I struggled to fish. This offseason, I've dedicated lots of my time to try to think about what's happening from this winter to spring transition, not just for the bass, but in the environment, in the water, in the lakes. What's happening so that I can understand the factors that are controlling both fish movement and what makes other anglers successful on the Prespawn. Something that a lot of beginner anglers do, and I admit I did this as well, is I went and I asked the guy who won it, what was he throwing? I then used that information for the next week and the next week and the next week, but was still not having success. But I would encourage you to less worry about what other people are throwing and try to examine the lakes that you're fishing in terms of the environment, the weather, and what's happening during the week that you're fishing. Knowing what baits the winners are using is only one piece of the puzzle to becoming a successful angler. I find that the most successful anglers are not only telling me what they were throwing, but they're really making comments about what the fish were doing that day. Understanding all of the factors at play is going to help you decide which baits to throw and ultimately which baits will be most successful. This off-season, I've been doing a lot of reading about the different baits that pros use in the Prespawn. But one thing I'm finding is there's a big range of baits. Baits from spinner baits, chatter baits, jerk baits, square bill crankbaits, lipless crankbaits, top waters, jigs, and even the flat side crankbait. So how do you decide which one to use? I've noticed that almost all the baits that the pros talk about for early spring and pre-spawn fishing are reaction baits. Many of these baits are moving baits, and I think part of the key to the early spring and pre-spawn periods is moving and covering as much water as you can. Whether it's top water, middle of the water column, or towards the bottom of the water column. Most of the baits are used in a way that covers as much water as quickly and as efficiently as possible. The factors that will help you decide what to throw, when to throw, and where to throw certain baits lie in the weather and what's happening in your lake. All of these factors are pieces to the puzzle, not just throwing your favorite lure. So let's dive a little deeper into this conversation because baits, like I said, are only one piece of the puzzle. If you're using only baits, you really aren't understanding all of the factors that affect fish in your lake, especially for the early spring and pre-spawn periods. The first thing to understand is that there are different areas of the water column, and understanding these will help you approach lakes. You should be asking yourself on any given day, where will I find fish today, whether it's the upper, the middle, or the lower part of the water column? One of the most important aspects of understanding spring is understanding winter. During the winter, lakes are cold and many fish will go deep to benefit from the geothermic transfer and warmer water that's in the bottom of the lake. As we move into the springtime, lakes experience a tremendous amount of change. The ice melts, we may have snowstorms, we may have rainstorms, we may have nice sunny days, and all of this contributes to water moving up and down throughout the water column. As the weather warms, it also becomes more consistent. And in the summer, we start to see the thermocline. This is the line that separates cold water and warmer water. And the only major changes are occurring in the upper part of the water column above the thermocline. As we saw in the spring, a change also occurs in the fall. You'll often hear that a lake is turning over, and this is driven by the weather. This is when warmer and colder water mix and the lake starts to turn over and fishing conditions become difficult. Understanding how a lake changes throughout the season is critical to you becoming a better angler and understanding fish behavior. Going back to the spring, we often see fish move up from deeper water. As the water warms, fish will follow. They are coming out of a long, cold winter, and so they need to feed up in order to get ready for the spawn. As we discussed, however, spring can be a time where we see a lot of different weather patterns. So when you approach your lake, try to think about the weather, the structure of your lake, the water temperature, and all of these factors will help you decide which bait to throw, which bait to tie on, and how you're going to be successful. So now that we've talked about baits, weather, and lake conditions, let's take a look at what this would look like on an actual Michigan lake. The lake we're taking a look at today is called North Lake, located in southeast Michigan. North Lake has a total area of 226 acres with a maximum depth of 51 feet. We're going to be taking a look at early spring or pre-spawn tactics, where water temperatures are around 50 degrees. Looking at a depth map, the northern side immediately stood out to me. Using Google Earth, I'm able to zoom in on this area for a closer look. Using satellite images, I can tell that there's a large flat here, and checking the depth chart confirms this. More space between the contour lines means it's not as steep as the drop-off to the south. Bass will often sit in deep water throughout the winter, but as the water warms, they will move to the closest shallow water in search of forage. Bass this time of the year are always chasing bait. So as an angler, you might find fish on the ledge, you might find fish on docks, you might find fish even out in deeper water or even in pockets. So as an angler, you have to be ready to encounter these different fish in these different depths and throw different baits in order to capitalize on hungry fish. Moving away from that northern flat, let's take a look at some other areas of this lake that might be interesting to fish during the pre-spawn. Don't forget that using Google Earth, you can take a look at the same lake across many different seasons. This will help you identify different patterns that you may see across the lake, or even different structures that might stick out to you. One of these structures that's starting to look interesting is this point that has a dock on it. Checking the depth map, I can see that it's also somewhat close to deeper water and might be interesting to fish in the pre-spawn. Using Google Earth, we can take a look at this point from several different seasons just to make sure if this dock is a permanent structure or not. This dock looks to be removed every once in a while and has created channels in the bank. Bass can then use these channels as ambush points, and this would be a great spot to fish in the pre-spawn. Let's move away from the northern side of the lake now and move to the south side. On the southern side of the lake, there's also a very nice flat. And here, you can see that in the summer, it actually has a very nice lily pad field. As I cycle through the different seasons, you're able to see that this lily pad field really grows throughout the summer. Remember though, that in the pre-spawn, these lily pads won't be as developed, and might not be the best place to start, but is a great spot to come back to in the middle of the summer. Taking a look at the three zones that we've identified thus far in this video, I want you to remember one thing. As the water warms, bass will often move to the nearest shallow area. So I would start my pre-spawn fishing on the northern side of this lake. Moving to that northern side of the lake, let's take a look at a few other areas that might be interesting. Here, right past the point that we talked about earlier, I can see another pad field. But remember, pads won't grow until the middle of the summer. They're not there in the pre-spawn, so it might not be an area of focus right now. Moving up into the northeastern side of the lake, you can see that there is some deeper water. And there are some nice points as well. These might be areas to check, though I don't think they'll be there quite yet. Remember, bass are coming from the deepest water possible. At the same time, however, rules are meant to be broken, and there's never a pattern that will always hold on every lake. For example, on the southern side of this lake, there is a part of the deeper water that cuts into the southern flat. This area is also close to the deeper water of the lake and may be interesting to fish in the prespawn. So hopefully you can use the lessons learned on North Lake here and apply them to the lakes that you'll be fishing this season. Taking a look at my topwater tackle box, a lot of the baits that I'm bringing on the kayak with me for the early spring and the pre-spawn are reaction baits. However, if you do hit that cold front, that snow, that random really cold spring day, don't forget to slow down with a couple finesse techniques as well. So there you have it. Baits are only one piece of the puzzle, and really it's about putting all those pieces together in order to be successful. So remember, this early spring, during the pre-spawn time, think about not only what baits to use, but what weather, what lake conditions you're facing, what areas of the lake will be productive, so that you can go out and capitalize on all of the research that you'll do for these tournaments this year. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you learned something, and remember, this series is really about everything that I've learned that I can hopefully teach you, that you can then use this season. I really hope you have a successful season. I can't wait until next time. Until then, peace.